Hey guys, this video is going to go over the address book FRQ. Remember that this will be like one of the FRQs that you see on your AP test. So let's talk about the address class first. We're not doing anything with this class, but we are going to be using it quite a bit in the address book class that we're working with. So the address class has a name, a street, and a number of a particular business. The constructor is just taking whatever parameters, the name, the street, and the number that we give it, and it's setting it equal to those variables. Now, there's also some accessor methods that will give us the name, the street, and the number of an address. So let's go to our address book class, and we can see here that the address book class is basically just creating an array list called addresses that is storing address objects. Now, our job is to build this method called onStreet for part A, and for part B, build the new business method. So let's start with part A, okay, and let's talk about what this method should do. So the onStreet method is going to return an array list of strings, okay, and it takes a parameter of a street name. So what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to go through the addresses array list, and it's supposed to find businesses that match the street name of the parameter. If it matches, it's supposed to add the business name to an array list that we return at the end of the method. So because we're returning an array list, we need to first make an array list. It doesn't matter what you name it. I am going to name mine. Let's do shop on street. Now, I am not going to specify a length because we're just going to be adding to it as we go. So we need to have some kind of loop here because we need a loop through the addresses array list, and we basically need to check to see if the address matches the street that we're giving as a parameter for this method. So if we do a for each loop, we can say for each address A in the array list addresses, we want to check and see if the street of that address matches the parameter. Now, since we would be comparing strings here, we would need to use the dot equals. So that would be our conditional statement. Now, if they match, if it's true, we want to add that business name that's on that street to this new array list called shop on street that we made. So to do that, we could just do shop on street, and then we want to do dot add since it's an array list, and we're just telling it what we want to add to the array list. So we want to add the name of that business. So we would use a.getName this time. And there we go. So again, this is going to loop through the addresses array list, and if the entry matches the street name of that parameter that we gave the method, it's going to take the business name and add it to this array list that we're returning. So now we just need to do our return. So we're returning our shop on street array list. So that's what we're doing for part A. Now for part B, we're doing something a little different here. It takes three parameters. It takes a name, a street, and a number. And this is also going to return an integer. Now, the integer that we want to return is actually the position of the entry that we are updating or adding. So what this method is doing is it's going to be still looping through the addresses array list, and it's checking to see if the street and the number match an existing entry? If they do, we're going to update the existing entry with the new business name. Okay, so think about like a business goes out of business, someone new moves in, the address and the number stay the same, but the business name change. So if they match, we're going to update the entry. Okay. If they don't, if this is a completely new business with a new address, we're just going to create a new entry and add it to the end of our array list. Now, we don't need to create a new array list here. We're just working with the addresses array list that's already been made for us at the beginning. So, because the position is important, remember that we want to return that integer with the position of the updated or the new entry. We need some kind of counter. Now, I could create some count variable. I could probably do this with a for each loop if I wanted to, but I think that a traditional for loop is probably going to be easier in this case. So I'm going to have my for loop start at the beginning of the array list addresses. It's going to run through the end of addresses. And remember, to get the length of an array list, we use size. And I just want to increment by 1. So we're going to loop through. And we need a conditional statement. We're checking to see if the street and the number matches. So we're going to have 2 conditions in here. Now, it's going to be a little bit different than for part A, since we're not using a for each loop. To access the entry at I, we would actually do addresses.get I. So that'll look at what address is in entry I. And we want to get the street name. And then we want to compare that to street to see if they're equal. Okay. Now we have a second condition. We also need to check to see if the numbers match. So again, we're going to do addresses.getI. At this time, we're going to do get number. And this is an integer, so we don't have to use the dot equals. We would just do the 2 equal signs, and we're checking to see if it equals the number that we gave it. So those are our conditions. Now, if both of those are true, what we want to do is we want to update the existing entry. Okay, there's already a business at this location. We need to update it with the new name. So we need to go ahead and we need to use the set method, or not method, but function for array lists that basically just says, hey, at position I want to do this. So we're going to actually create a new entry. We're going to essentially just replace the entry that was at I with a new one. So to do that, we could just do new address and then give it those parameters. Okay, anytime you make a new address, it needs a name, it needs a street, and it needs a number. Now, in addition to replacing the existing entry with this updated information, remember that we want to return the position of the updated entry. So this would be a good time to go ahead and throw in a return here, where we would just be returning I, which is the position we're at in our for loop. So let's go ahead and let's think about what would happen if, what happened here? Something weird is happening. Let's see, that ends my if, that ends my for loop. Oh, I see what happened. Okay, so anyways, we have the condition where we have an existing entry that we're updating. So let's think about what we would need to do if this is a completely new business with a completely new address. Okay, so if this never triggers, that means we've gone through the entire for loop and the street and number that we gave it don't match any existing entries. So that means that our for loop has completely run its course and now we're doing something different. So if the for loop comes up empty-handed, that means we have a new address and we want to add it to the end of our addresses array list. So we're just going to create a new address. And again, we're going to give it those same parameters, a name, a street, and a number. And then we need to return its position. Now, when we use the add function for array lists, it adds it to the end of the array list. So to return the position, it would just be the size of the array list minus 1. And there you go. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to use this video to help you update your FRQ. And have a great day, guys.